Hi, welcome to Unit 3B. In this unit, we're going to show you some very interesting looking symbols and funny looking lines on your papers and talk about what they mean. Oh, 3B, we're talking about absolute values and inequalities. Absolute values and inequalities have some very interesting appearances. The first thing I'm going to show you is a map. And you look at the map and you're thinking, well, wait a minute, this is math. This is not geography. And you're right. But I want to point out to you something about this map. All of these cities have distances between them. So if we look at the distance between London and Norwich over here, it's 110 kilometers. And it's moving off in the northeast, generally speaking. And let's take London and Cardiff over here, 160 kilometers in almost the opposite direction. Now, when we have numbers in math that are going in opposite directions, generally they have opposing signs. So one of those numbers might be positive, and one of them might be negative to indicate that it's moving in the opposite direction. But when we talk about distances, do we ever talk about negatives? Do I ever say, I live negative 10 miles away from the store? No. Even if I live to the south or to the west, I don't live negative 10 miles away from the store. I live 10 miles away in no matter what direction it is. And this is what we're talking about when we talk about absolute value. Absolute value is a measure of how far this number is away from zero, zero being our center point. Let's look at our easy example on the right. We have our green 5, and we put it in between straight lines, straight up and down lines. And these are not brackets and they're not mistakes. That's an absolute value indicator, an absolute value operator. And we say we want the absolute value of 5. Well, how far is 5 away from 0 in terms of distance? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the absolute value of 5 is 5. Let's look at the negative example over here, our red negative 3, and we've also put it in these straight lines. And we want the absolute value of negative 3. Well, how far is negative 3 away from 0? It's 1, 2, 3 away from 0. The absolute value of negative 3 is positive 3. And generally, the answer to an absolute value problem is always going to be a positive number. Our exception, or our special case, how many of our math rules always have an exception or a special case, is 0. The absolute value of 0 is 0. That's how far away it is from 0. It's right on the dot. There is no difference at all. Okay, so let's talk about inequality symbols and comparison symbols. Over here on the left in the pink, we've got our equality and inequality. Now this equal sign you've seen since you were in grade school. It means that what's on the left is equal to what's on the right. So 2 times 4 would be equal to 8. Those are equivalent ideas. If we throw a line through it, now we have indicated that they're not equal. So 2 does not equal 4. 4 does not equal 8. 6 million does not equal 7. So those are our equality and inequality symbols. Over here we have our comparison operators, and students sometimes get a little hung up on which operator is which. This one is the greater than. This one is the less than. If you tilt your head a little bit, you might remember that it looks like an L. L for less than. And then over here we have greater than or equal to, and you see the equal sign is sort of buried in it. If I turn on my annotation here, I can draw you a little circle around. See that equal sign? It's sort of buried right there in the symbol. And so that's why there's an equal in there. So we have greater than or equal or less than or equal. And the way that I like to remember these is the bigger side of the symbol is pointing to the larger number. The smaller side points to the smaller number. So if I say 13 is greater than 4, pardon my handwriting there, the bigger number is on the bigger side, and the smaller number is on the smaller side. You can almost think of it like a funnel. Okay? Or if we do it in the opposite direction, 4 is less than 13. And that's how we read those. And that's absolute value and inequality symbols.